Mexico is taking a step that just a year ago seemed impossible. A country that was ready to impose strict tariffs on Chinese cars is now rapidly turning toward China and is seriously considering switching to Chinese cars and electric vehicles as the foundation of its national fleet. This is not a coincidence and not a political experiment. It is the result of deep structural problems that have accumulated inside Mexico's automotive industry for decades and are now breaking to the surface, becoming part of the largest geoeconomic shift in the region. And already, economic centers across Latin America are discussing whether the era of Chinese Mexico has begun. Internal reasons for this shift are obvious. Mexico's car industry, long considered the backbone of the economy and its main driver of growth, has reached the point of systemic exhaustion. According to El Financiero, more than 40% of production lines in Mexico still operate on equipment from the late 1990s. Investment in modernization has fallen almost by half over the last decade, and qualified specialists are leaving for the US because of the wage gap. Giants such as General Motors, Ford, and Stellantis are cutting projects in Mexico and moving production closer to markets in Europe and Asia. Even Japanese automakers, who always viewed Mexico as a strategic base, are reducing their presence. Toyota froze its expansion in Guanajuato, and Nissan shut down part of its assembly lines in Aguascalientes. Against this backdrop of crisis, Chinese companies did what neither Americans nor Europeans did. They offered Mexico a complete infrastructure model with affordable cars, supplies of components, electric batteries, rare earth elements, and even participation in building new plants adapted to local conditions. According to the South China Morning Post, China offered Mexico a package that diplomatic sources called an automotive Silk Road, a mix of supplies, investment, and technological support that essentially replaces what the US provided for decades. And here it is important to understand the role of Mexico's market. For China, Mexico is not just a partner. It is a strategic foothold, the second largest car market in Latin America after Brazil, and the largest exporter of cars to the US after Canada. More than 80% of all cars produced in Mexico go north to the United States. For Beijing, it is a golden opportunity. Entering Mexico means obtaining a ticket into the US market while bypassing tariffs and political restrictions. And the Chinese understand this very well. According to Reuters, several major Chinese brands, BYD, SAIC, Chang'an, Geely, are already negotiating the construction of plants in the states of Nuevo León, Coahuila, and Tamaulipas. One insider close to the Mexican government said that Chinese investment in the automotive sector could become the largest in the country's history since the USMCA agreement. And this is exactly what is causing panic in Washington. For the United States, what is happening is a blow in the back, especially for the administration of Donald Trump, which built its trade policy on pressure, tariffs, and forcing Mexico into economic loyalty. But by pressuring Mexico with tariffs and threats, Washington itself pushed it toward Beijing. According to analysts from the Wall Street Journal, Mexico realized that the US uses it as a buffer, but provides neither technology, nor investment, nor real guarantees, while China offered more in 1 year than the US in 20. For Trump, this shift is not just an unpleasant surprise, but a direct humiliation. He built his campaign rhetoric on the idea that he would force Mexico to be loyal, and now he sees the largest southern neighbor opening its doors to China, America's biggest rival. People around Trump are already accusing Mexico of betraying American industry and claiming that Chinese cars entering through Mexico are a Trojan horse in the heart of the US. But the problem is that Mexico replies, "You had 20 years to help us. China did it in 1." The reason Chinese cars and electric vehicles are at the center of this shift is simple. China offers what no one else in the world can. First, there is the price. Chinese electric vehicles cost 30 to 40% less than American ones, and 20 to 25% less than European ones. Second, China provides a full supply chain from lithium and nickel to lithium iron phosphate batteries. According to Nikkei Asia, China offered Mexico dedicated quotas for the export of rare earth elements exclusively for Mexican assembly sites. This means Mexico can produce electric vehicles at a cost level with which American car makers simply cannot compete. Third, China is willing to share technology, unlike Western companies, which for years refused to move research and development centers to Mexico. Chinese firms are already planning to open engineering hubs in Monterrey and Puebla. This changes everything. Mexico gains not just assembly, but technology, something the country has been waiting for decades. And panic is growing in Washington. The United States understands that if Mexico becomes part of China's automotive architecture, the American market will be flooded with Chinese vehicles that cannot be stopped by tariffs because they will enter as Mexican under the USMCA framework. That is why several U.S. senators are already demanding a revision of USMCA and a general ban on cars produced in Mexico with Chinese content. But, as Politico notes, the time has passed. Supply chains are already being rebuilt. For China, an alliance with Mexico is a strategic breakthrough. For Mexico, it is a chance to modernize its dying auto industry. And for the United States, it is the beginning of the most painful geoeconomic transformation on the southern border since NAFTA. The most alarming phase is beginning now, as supply chains rapidly shift from the United States to China through Mexican territory. Analysts are already calling this the new NAFTA effect. Only this time, the beneficiary is not American industry, but Chinese corporations using Mexico as an economic bridge into the heart of North America. According to analysts at Boston Consulting Group, the volume of Chinese investment in Mexican auto plants could double by the end of next year. This means that within 12 to 18 months, dozens of facilities in Mexico will be operating fully integrated into Chinese technological chains, from battery modules to autonomous driving systems. This is exactly what is causing real fear among American automakers. In behind-the-scenes meetings described by Bloomberg, executives at Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis openly say that if Chinese car manufacturers enter the United States through Mexico without tariffs, the game is over. And this is not an exaggeration. Mexico gives China what Beijing could not obtain through direct exports to the United States, nor through Canada, nor through Europe. Tariff-free access to a market of 300 million consumers. Mexicans themselves fully understand the scale of what is happening. For them, this is a chance, for the first time in decades, to move from the role of America's assembly workshop to the status of a full-fledged world-class industrial center. China is offering them what America never dared to provide: electric vehicle technologies, inexpensive batteries, knowledge exchange, infrastructure investment, long-term contracts, and most importantly, access to rare earth elements that Mexico cannot mine and the United States does not sell. China is essentially saying that it will give them what the Americans will not, if they choose to align themselves with Beijing. For Washington, this looks like a quiet but deadly undermining operation. China is gaining a foothold right at the United States' southern border, and Mexico is gaining the chance for an economic leap that pulls it out from under American influence. Transformations of this scale happen once in a generation, which is why panic is growing in American financial circles. While Washington argues about tariffs, China acts quickly and silently, cementing its partnership with Mexico, just as it previously did with Saudi Arabia, Indonesia, Brazil, and the UAE. This is not merely trade, it is strategic interweaving of industries that creates dependence for decades. And now the key question being asked on Wall Street and in Congress is this: if Mexico fully becomes part of China's automotive industrial ecosystem, will America be able to stop the flow of Chinese cars into its cities? And if it cannot, what will remain of Trump's attempts to protect the American auto industry?